I've already given him 15 years. I can't throw that away now. We've built a whole life together. How can I just walk away from all of that? I've invested so much time, so much energy, so much of myself. If I leave now, it was all for nothing. If you've ever said these words, if you've ever felt trapped by how much you've already invested in your marriage, you need to hear this. You might be experiencing something psychologists call the sunk cost fallacy, and it's keeping you stuck in a marriage that's slowly killing you. Today, we're talking about one of the most powerful psychological traps that keeps women in unhappy marriages. Not abuse, not love, not even hope that things will get better, but the fear that leaving means all those years were wasted. We're going to explain what the sunk cost fallacy is, why it's so powerful, how to recognize if it's controlling your decisions, and most importantly, how to break free from it. Because here's the truth. The years you've already spent are gone. You can't get them back whether you stay or leave. The only question that matters is, what do you want to do with the years you have left? Let's talk about the sunk cost fallacy and why staying for the wrong reasons is costing you your future. What is the sunk cost fallacy? The sunk cost fallacy is a psychological principle that says we continue investing in something because we've already invested so much, even when continuing no longer makes sense. Here's a simple example. You buy a movie ticket for $20. 15 minutes into the movie, you realize it's terrible. You're not enjoying it at all. But you stay for the entire 2 hours because you paid for the ticket. You've thrown away 2 hours of your life watching a bad movie to justify the $20 you already spent and can't get back. That's the sunk cost fallacy. Making decisions based on past investments instead of future benefit. Now, apply this to marriage. You've invested 15 years, 20 years, maybe more. You've built a home together. You have children together. You've been through hard times and made sacrifices. You've given up dreams and compromised and bent yourself into shapes to make it work. And now you're realizing the marriage isn't working. Maybe it's not abusive, but it's not fulfilling. Maybe you're not growing, you're shrinking. Maybe you're lonely, unfulfilled, living parallel lives with someone who feels like a stranger. But the thought of leaving feels impossible. Not because you love him, not because you're happy, but because leaving means admitting that all those years, all that effort, all that sacrifice didn't lead where you thought it would. It feels like failure, like waste, like throwing away a huge chunk of your life. So you stay, not because staying makes you happy, but because you've already invested so much that leaving feels like losing even more. That's the sunk cost fallacy, and it's one of the most common reasons women stay in marriages that are no longer serving them. Laura's story. Laura stayed in her marriage for 23 years because she couldn't face the idea that 23 years had been wasted. She and her husband had grown apart slowly over the years. No big betrayals, no dramatic fights, just a quiet drifting until they were roommates, raising kids together instead of partners building a life together. She wasn't happy. She hadn't been happy for years. But every time she thought about leaving, the same thought stopped her. I've already given him my entire adult life. My 20s, my 30s, my 40s. If I leave now, all of that was for nothing. Her therapist tried to help her see the flaw in this thinking. Laura, staying or leaving doesn't change what those 23 years were. They're already gone. The question is, do you want to spend the next 23 years the same way? But Laura couldn't hear it. The idea of wasting 23 years was unbearable. So she stayed 5 more years, trying to make it work, convincing herself that if she just tried harder, it would be worth it. At 48, Laura finally reached her breaking point. Not because something dramatic happened, but because she realized she was sacrificing her future to justify her past. She was staying to make 23 years of investment worth it, but in doing so, she was guaranteeing that the next 20 years would also be unhappy. She was throwing good years after bad years, trying to justify a decision she'd made when she was 25 and didn't know any better. That's when it clicked. The 23 years weren't wasted. She'd learned things. She'd grown. She'd raised children she loved. Those years had value regardless of whether the marriage continued. But staying wasn't honoring those years. It was betraying her future. Laura filed for divorce at 48, and yes, part of her grieved the loss of 23 years, but a bigger part of her celebrated the freedom of her future. She told us, "I spent 5 years staying because I'd already invested 23. If I'd stayed 5 more years for the same reason, I'd have been 53 and still unhappy." At some point, you have to stop counting backwards and start looking forward. Laura is 53 now, and she's been divorced for 5 years, and she says those 5 years have been more fulfilling, more authentic, more alive than the previous 23. Not because those years were wasted, but because she finally stopped making decisions based on what she'd already spent and started making decisions based on what she wanted for her future. How to recognize sunk cost thinking. So how do you know if the sunk cost fallacy is keeping you stuck? Here are the signs. You frequently say, "I've already invested so much." This phrase is a red flag. If your primary reason for staying is how much time you've already given, not how much joy you're currently experiencing, that's sunk cost thinking. You make decisions based on the past, not the future. Ask yourself, if you met your husband today, knowing everything you know now, would you choose to marry him? If the answer is no, but you're staying because of history, that's the sunk cost fallacy. You feel like leaving would make everything for nothing. This belief that your marriage needs to last forever for the years to have meaning is the core of sunk cost thinking. The years had value regardless of how the story ends. You're staying to make it worth it. You think if you can just get to 20 years or 25 years or until the kids are grown, then the sacrifice will have been justified. But more time in an unhappy marriage doesn't make the earlier time more valuable. It just creates more years you'll regret. You feel trapped by what you've built together. The house, the family, the life. It feels too big to walk away from. But staying in a life that doesn't fit you anymore isn't preserving what you've built. It's living in a museum of your past. You're comparing yourself to divorced friends and think, "At least I didn't waste all those years." You're measuring your success by longevity, not quality. A 40-year unhappy marriage isn't more successful than a 10-year marriage that ended when it stopped working. You're terrified of starting over. The idea of rebuilding your life feels impossible because you've already spent so much time building this one. But you're not starting over. You're starting from here, with everything you've learned. If you recognize yourself in any of these, you might be letting the sunk cost fallacy control your decisions. The truth about wasted years. Let's talk about the fear at the heart of this. The fear that leaving means those years were wasted. Here's what you need to understand. Those years weren't wasted. They can't be wasted. They already happened. They already have value, meaning, and purpose regardless of what you decide to do next. Think about what those years gave you. You learned things about yourself, about relationships, about what you need and what you don't. Those lessons aren't erased if the marriage ends. You grew. You're not the same person you were when you got married. You've developed skills, strength, wisdom. That growth is yours to keep. You had experiences, some good, some bad, all meaningful. Those experiences shaped you. They're part of your story. Divorce doesn't erase that. You may have children. If you do, those years gave you the most precious gift of your life. How can that be wasted? You tried. You showed up. You invested, you gave it your all. That effort has value in itself, regardless of the outcome. The years weren't wasted if they taught you something. And one of the most valuable things they might have taught you is what you don't want for your future. Here's an analogy that helped many women. Imagine you're driving to a destination. 2 hours in, you realize you're going the wrong way. Do you keep driving in the wrong direction because you've already invested 2 hours? Or do you turn around? Turning around doesn't waste the 2 hours. Those 2 hours taught you that you were going the wrong way. That's valuable information. Now you can use it to go in the right direction. Staying in an unhappy marriage because you've already invested years is like driving in the wrong direction because you've already driven so far. It doesn't make sense. It just takes you further than where you actually want to be.
Jennifer stayed for 30 years. 30 years! She got married at 22. She's 52 now, and she spent the last 15 years of that marriage knowing it wasn't right. But she couldn't leave. She'd think, I've already given him 30 years. What's 5 more? And then 5 years would pass, and she'd think the same thing again. She watched her children grow up and leave home. She reached menopause. She entered her 50s, and she was still in a marriage that made her feel invisible. Her husband wasn't abusive. He wasn't a bad person. They just weren't right for each other. They wanted different things from life. They had different values. They'd grown in different directions. But Jennifer stayed because leaving at 50 felt harder than leaving at 45, which felt harder than leaving at 40. Each year that passed made her feel more trapped because each year represented more investment to lose. Her turning point came when her daughter, now 25, was going through her own relationship struggles. She told Jennifer, "Mom, I'm staying with him because I've been together 3 years. I don't want to throw that away." Jennifer heard herself in her daughter's words, and she realized she was modeling for her daughter that women should stay in relationships that don't serve them because of time already spent. She didn't want that for her daughter, and she finally realized she didn't want it for herself either. Jennifer told us, "I thought leaving at 52 meant 30 years were wasted. But I finally understood that staying would mean my 50s, 60s, 70s were wasted too. I couldn't get back the years I'd already given, but I could save the years I had left." She filed for divorce at 52. She's 55 now, and she told us these 3 years have been the most authentic years of her life. She is traveling, she's pursuing hobbies her husband never supported, she's dating someone who sees her, really sees her. She's living instead of just existing. And those 30 years, they weren't wasted. They gave her children she adores, they taught her what she needs in a relationship, they made her who she is today. The marriage ending doesn't erase that value. Jennifer said, "I wish I'd left sooner, but I'm grateful I left when I did, instead of spending another 10 years trapped by sunk cost thinking. Every year I stay free is a year I saved from that trap." Breaking free from sunk cost thinking. So, how do you break free from this pattern? How do you stop letting past investment dictate future decisions? Shift your question. Stop asking, "Have I invested too much to leave?" Start asking, "If I stay, will I be happy?" The past is unchangeable. The future is still yours to create. Separate the marriage from the years. The years have value, the lessons have value, the growth has value. That value exists whether you stay or go. You're not throwing away the years by leaving. You're honoring them by using what they taught you. Calculate the real cost. Yes, leaving costs something, but so does staying. What's the cost of another 5 years in this marriage? Another 10? What dreams are you sacrificing? What version of yourself are you suppressing? What joy are you missing? Stop thinking about making it worth it. More years in an unhappy marriage don't make the earlier years more worthwhile. They just create more years you'll wish you had back. Imagine your future self. Picture yourself at 60, 70, 80. What will she wish you had done at your current age? Will she thank you for staying or for leaving? Listen to her wisdom. Talk to women who left. Ask them if they regret wasting their years in the marriage. Most will tell you they don't see it that way at all. They see those years as part of their journey, valuable regardless of how the story ended. Reframe starting over. You're not starting from zero. You're starting from experience, wisdom, strength, clarity. That's not starting over. That's starting from a place of power. Get therapy. A good therapist can help you see your sunk cost thinking clearly and work through it. This pattern is hard to break alone. Make a decision based on today, not yesterday, not 10 years ago. Today, right now, knowing everything you know. If you were choosing today, what would you choose? The sunk cost fallacy is powerful because it feels rational. It feels responsible. It feels like you're honoring your commitment and your investment. But you're not. You're just throwing more good years after bad years, hoping that somehow quantity will create quality. It won't. For those still deciding, if you're reading this and thinking, this is me, I'm staying because I've invested so much, I want you to sit with something. You have one life. One. This isn't a dress rehearsal. You don't get to go back and do it again once you figure out the right way. The years you've already spent are gone. You can't change them. You can honor them. You can learn from them. You can treasure the good parts and release the rest. But you cannot get them back by staying in a marriage that's not working. Every day you stay for the wrong reasons is another day you're choosing past investment over future happiness. Another day you're making decisions based on who you were instead of who you want to become. And I know leaving is terrifying. I know the idea of wasting all those years feels unbearable. I know starting a new life feels impossible. But staying in a life that doesn't fit you anymore isn't less terrifying, it's just more familiar. And you deserve more than familiar. You deserve fulfilling. You deserve authentic. You deserve a life that's built on what you want, not on justifying what you've already done. The sunk cost fallacy is convincing you that leaving costs too much, but staying costs more. It costs you your future, your joy, your authenticity, your one precious life. Don't let past investment steal your future possibility. Ending. Here's what I want to ask you today. Have you ever felt stuck in your marriage because of how much time you've already invested? Are you staying because leaving feels like admitting failure or waste? What's really keeping you there? Share your story in the comments. Tell us where you are in this process. Tell us what you're struggling with. This community is here to support you whatever you decide. And if you're someone who broke free from sunk cost thinking and left, tell us how. What helped you see it clearly? What would you say to someone still trapped in this pattern? Your perspective could change someone's life. Because here's the truth. You're not stuck. You feel stuck, but feeling stuck and being stuck are two different things. You have choices. You have power. You have one beautiful, precious life ahead of you, and you get to decide what to do with it. Not based on what you've already done, based on what you still want to do, based on how you want to feel when you wake up every morning for the rest of your life. The years you've already given have value. Honor them by refusing to waste any more. In our next video, we're finally going to dive deep into rebuilding your identity after divorce. How do you rediscover who you are when you've spent years being his wife? How do you reconnect with dreams you put aside? How do you become whole again? We're covering it all. Until then, remember this. The best time to leave an unhappy marriage was years ago. The second best time is now. Don't let sunk cost thinking steal another day from you. You're not throwing away your past by choosing your future. You're finally honoring both. You've got this, and we've got you.